Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Foundation. I am your host and servant, Steve Teed, here to ask you just one question. What are you building your life upon? That's really the question that we're going to be asking here, but as we get in, let's turn down the music a little bit here. Turn down. Now we begin into our show, as I said, we're really asking that question. What do you build your life on? You see, everybody has a bias in life. You can find them everywhere. You can find them in news articles, in television shows, in movies, in songs. It's really all about what's behind it. And the foundation of your life is what you make your decisions on. It's what you think about various things. It's what your moral code is on. It's how you'll decide who you'll marry. It's how you decide who your friends will be. It's how you decide what you're going to like, what you're not going to like. That foundation is vitally important. You see, when you buy a new house, one of the things you'll actually look at is going and looking at the foundation. Does the foundation have cracks in it? Is it leaning? Is it sinking? That kind of thing. Those are important details to note. And so we're going to be asking that about your life. Now, this series and this podcast, if you're wondering what it really is all about, it's really, as I said, about that question, what are you building your life on, or what's the foundation for your life? And throughout this series, what you're really going to ask is, as we go through, we're going to have multiple segments. We're going to have a news segment, news articles, news things that'll come up. And the purpose of it is not just to give commentary, but there is going to be commentary. Obviously, it's going to be my stance on it. But it's to ask the question, what is the foundation of this story? Why is it reported in such a way? Why are they saying certain things? Why is it being put out there? And what's the underlying truth behind it? And so to really come to the conclusion of, are they on a solid foundation, or is it a foundation that is cracked? It is a foundation that doesn't hold water. It is one that falls apart. And so the foundation, as I said, is your worldview. And in our culture today, there are many worldviews, and we're going to deal with them. We're going to look at them. There's the worldview of critical race theory, where the world is looked at as everything as a battle, as a struggle. That's also known as cultural Marxism, where you have the oppressing class and you have the oppressed class. And typically in our society right now, it's the right-wing, white, Anglo-Christian, straight male that is the most oppressive thing you can be. And so you see things like that. And there's plenty of examples out there on their critical race theory. Then there's gender theory, which we're also going to look at. And I guarantee we're going to look at gender theory a little bit in this episode, in one of our newscasts. We're going to see gender theory in action. Then there's the hedonism worldview, where everything is designed for my pleasure. And as long as I derive pleasure out of it, therefore it is good. And so, as I said, we're going to be looking at these worldviews and asking, is this a good foundation, or does it really hold cracks? Does it really fall apart when you really look at it? Now, I'm not going to hide what the foundation is that I'm going to be teaching from. The foundation that I am going to be teaching from is a Christian worldview, is a biblical foundation, is a foundation that is built on Jesus Christ. The Bible itself uses the metaphor of a foundation. In fact, in one spot, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus was teaching to his disciples. At the end of it, Matthew 7, you can find this. And he's talking to the disciples. He says, anybody who listens to my words and does them is like a man who builds his house on a rock. When the rain comes, the wind blows, the house will stand firm. He says, but anybody who hears my words and doesn't put them into practice is like a man who builds his house on the sand. Then when the storm comes and the water rises, the foundation is moved and the house collapses. And so the foundation is there. In another spot, the Apostle Paul talks about the fact that we're built on the teachings of Christ. The cornerstone is Christ, the foundation of the apostles, what has been taught. And so as you join me in this podcast, as we look at various things, what I want you to begin to ask and begin to look at is the foundation on which the world is putting forth, and maybe perhaps the foundation that I hold to, is it a solid foundation? Is it really? Is the foundation of evolutionary thought, is it really a solid foundation? And I'll work with that one a little bit later to explain what do I mean by the evolutionary thought of foundation. Because it's not the idea that something changes, but a little bit more to it. And I'll show you how on issues such as racism, sexual purity, joy, contentment, on what is going on in the world. These are best described on the foundation that is Jesus Christ and the foundation of the Bible. Because any other foundation that you build on, it's a sand foundation where it's just going to slide out from under us. It's going to move out from under us. And so that's what this podcast is all about. Again, I thank you for joining me. And here in the inaugural episode, we're going to go through a couple of different segments. As I said, we're going to have a new news segment. News that you can perhaps use is what the segment's called. News you can perhaps use from some news headlines. Maybe you're familiar with them. Maybe you're not. Maybe you haven't even heard of them. But they're out there. Another segment that we will get into is one that I'm calling Why Are You So Meme? Why Are You So Meme? Not mean, meme. Where we look at some memes that are out there. And again, looking at what is behind it. What does it mean? And we're going to look at a couple of those. What's behind it all? Another one, not in today's episode, but in a future episode, we'll probably do a couple of advice columns. There are some very left-wing segments out there that they ask for advice. It used to be like Dear Abby and that kind of thing. But they ask for advice on relationships, on parenting, and sometimes it's not really good advice. And so it's kind of an advice column. I'm not going to say I'm an expert. I've been married for going on 17 years now. I got 3 beautiful boys that cause as much trouble and damage as any others. But hey, it puts me in a position to give advice. But again, I'm doing it from the Christian worldview. That's where I am doing it from. I'm doing it from the Christian worldview and building it from a biblical foundation. That's what we're going to be looking at. So, as we get into today's real episode here, we're going to jump in, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some news. We're going to look at some news. I got to hit my news music here. That's what we're going to do. Some doozy of a news. What is going on in the news? And our first news article, it is going to come out of Chicago. It is where it's going to come. St. Luke's Lutheran Church of Logan Square. That is where we're going. So let's cut back on the music as I set the stage here for you. And it's a Lutheran church, as I said, out of Chicago. And it has what is best can be described as drag prayer hour. Now, one of the things that gained popularity over the last while, since about 2015, is drag story time, I think is what it was called, which was held in public libraries, things like that. Well, this Lutheran church decided to, step it up a notch kind of thing. Before I go any further, I'm going to play a clip from it. They put it out themselves on their YouTube channel. Then we're going to visit their Facebook page to see if they wrote about it. Again, this is not going to be for the squeamish. It's what I said. It's a priest dressed in drag doing, I guess, what could be classified as a children's story. So I'm just going to kind of jump into it here. For those who are listening, you can view this on YouTube and on Rumble, but for those who are listening through the podcast, I want to set the scene here for you. He's dressed completely in drag, a blonde wig, a makeup, a collar on, white kind of outfit, gold gloves, high heels, and a crucifix around his neck. That's kind of what's going on here. I'm just gonna play the video for you. You can catch it on the YouTube. I'm gonna play the video here of this scene, and we're gonna talk about it.
To the people, the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated, and I'd like to invite any children or people who would like to see a picture book that I will be showing on the iPad here anyone who'd like a closer view of that to come up and sit. Actually, set myself on fire. Come up and sit somewhere on the ground here. I have an awesome story to share with you today. I'm really excited to share it with you. I have a question first, though. Have any of you ever seen a drag queen? No? No? Is this everybody's first time they're ever seeing a drag queen? Well, hello. I am also a boy most of the time when I'm here, but today I beautiful queen today.
Yes, beautiful.
So, the story that I want to share with you today is called Joy.
That's enough of that. That's enough of that. The worst thing is you got kids sitting there on the stage as they came forward for this story time called Joy, and you heard laughter there. And whatever, this guy, he's dressed in a dress, dressed in a blonde wig, dressed in everything. You can see a picture of it there. Show it to you. You can find it easy enough. And he was sitting there, he's like flipping this long, ridiculous blonde wig back and forth is what he was doing. And that's what they were laughing at. And to make matters worse, you've got this woman who's there, who's apparently, I think she's doing the taping given how loud her voice was, where she makes the comment, beautiful. I'm sorry. That's not beautiful. What you've got there is an exploitation of children. You've got the brainwashing of children. The sad part is I've met atheists, and I've heard atheists, and I've seen them write, where they say that religion, that Christianity is in the business of brainwashing children. That's kind of what they say. You want brainwashing of children? This is brainwashing of children. It's been, as I said, drag story time at libraries has been held. Putting an LGBTQ library section in a elementary school library, putting gender theory in kindergarten, telling them they can choose their gender, choose if they're a boy or a girl, teaching them things such as some girls have penises, some boys have vaginas. And the thing is, as disgusting as that is, and as wrong as that is, as a brainwashing as that is in modern culture, and it appears everywhere. This last Pride Month, June, July, somewhere around there, Blue's Clues came out with a drag song, and you can find that on YouTube as well. A drag song after like the Ants Go Marching 2x2, except it was all about the Pride Parade. Absolutely horrendous. And then I think Sesame Street introduced a transgender character not too long ago. But here's the thing. I kind of expect that of the world. A world that's built its foundation on whatever, where it's how you feel, that's kind of expected. But a church is supposed to be the church of Jesus Christ. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the church of Jesus. It's not supposed to be the church of however I feel. Now I'm going to go to their Facebook page here, and I'm going to pull up what they said about it. And here's what it is. This is just this took place December 12th. I think it was a Sunday. That's where they put it out. And that's when this post went live. Anyways, I have to look at the date to see if that's true. But here's what they actually said. It'd be today. He says, today we consider what it might be like to have a dress rehearsal for the kind of joy awaiting us on the other side of Advent. It has been so hard to know what the joy will be because it has been so long since some of us have been joyful. It has been a difficult and tiring couple of years. Now, if they stopped right there, I would say absolutely, I agree. And it's a good exercise to stop. If you're holding to the truth that Jesus is going to return, you wonder, what's it going to be like in heaven? That's kind of the question. In fact, I taught on this just last Sunday. What's heaven like? It's going to be joyful. It really is. But that's not really what they're speaking about. He's talking about, I'm doing a dress rehearsal. Get it? He's in a dress? He's in a dress? Yeah, dress? But let's continue. He said, and I decided, instead of telling you, this is how I want you to be joyful as we prepare for this dress rehearsal, I figured I would instead put on a dress as so many who have inspired me have done. I decided to follow their example, showing that liberation from oppressive laws clears a path for joy. But allowing yourself to feel joy can be scary. I wasn't sure how the outside world would handle me when they saw me this morning. Joy is difficult to feel. It's vulnerable, but isn't it so beautiful? That was the post, and it's got the picture there of him dressed in a drag outfit behind the lectern where the teaching of the Word of God is supposed to be. Then it shows him sitting in the chair, full gown, dressed in drag, high heels, trying to show the story, and then a picture of them with, I'm guessing, the other two priests of this Lutheran church, which are both female. And he's dressed. Now, I get some things that I want to say here. Remember, this is about foundation. What's the foundation of this? What's behind this? What's behind it all? This isn't just about an idea of disgust. That's not what it is. I'm not showing you this because it upsets me, although it does. To see this is like, what on earth is going on? And I'm reminded of what Jesus said when Jesus gave the warning. He says that anybody who causes one of these to stumble, it'd be better if a millstone would be tied around their neck and be thrown into the sea. There's that aspect to it, but what I want is to understand what's behind this. And I'm going to work in that second paragraph that I read there, where he said, instead of telling you this is how I want you to be joyful as we prepare the just rehearsal, he says, I figured I would instead put on a dress, as so many have inspired me have done. Okay, there's one of his problems right there. He's drawing inspiration from the wrong spot. Instead of drawing inspiration of how to live, how to experience joy from Jesus Christ, he's doing it from outside. Unless he's in a church of where all the men are in drag, that's possible, I guess. But I sincerely doubt it. Especially as I looked through their Facebook page, where they retook a beautiful portion of the book of Luke, which is Mary's song, and made it her. How did they word it? A protest song, I think is what they said. A song of protest. So it was kind of it shows me what's going on here. But it's this idea that he's getting his inspiration from the wrong spot. He's supposed to be teaching them the truth of Jesus Christ, yet instead he's taking his inspirations other places, rather than from the Word of God. So right there you've got a foundation that's not built on the Word of God, but that's not all I want to look at. He said, I decided to follow their example. Now, what was the example? Showing that liberation from oppressive laws clears a path for joy. That leaves me a question. What oppressive laws is he talking about? What oppressive laws? What law in our land says men shall not dress in women's clothing? Which one? Which law of the land says, hey, you can't wear a dress and walk through downtown? Remember, that's in Chicago. What place in North America? There are places in the world that would have this law. But what place in North America, in Canada, the United States, says a man is going to be thrown in jail, he'll be attacked by police, frisked, handcuffed, have a picture taken of him, thrown in jail, and left to rot there? What oppressive law is he talking about? There isn't one. There isn't an oppressive law that says this. So whose law is he talking about? He's not talking about the laws of men. Not at all. So he's got to be talking about God's law. He's got to be talking about what God has set forth. You know, the thing that he's supposed to be teaching, the thing that he's supposed to be instructing to these kids. That's what he's supposed to be talking about. But he's not. Is he talking about that? Is he talking about that oppressive law? Is he saying that God's laws are oppressive? You know who teaches that? Not the Bible. Not Jesus. Jesus didn't teach that the laws of God were oppressive. It's Lucifer. Luciferianism. That's really what that comes from. In Luciferianism, it says that God is an oppressive God who wants to keep in, and Lucifer is the light bearer who comes into the world, and he brought freedom to humanity. And the way that you experience joy is by throwing off those oppressive laws of God and doing whatever you feel like. That's kind of the idea. Now I'm not looking at this. I'm not with him. He's saying that, hey, I'm going to see Jesus when he comes back. That's what he says. But I think the scriptures say the exact opposite. Revelation chapter 21 says, he who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. This is when Christ returns, the New Jerusalem comes down. But look what he said. Look what it says. Revelation 21:8. But the cowardly, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. I'm sorry, I don't believe for a second that a person who's dressing in drag is not committing sexual immorality. Because that's exactly what it is. It is sexualizing children. That's the purpose behind drag story time at the libraries. It really is. It's about sexualizing children. And you can find disturbing videos where you have this drag time story hour where they're not reading a story. You've got this guy dressed in women's clothing, dressed to the hilts, and he's teaching little children how to twerk. Teaching them how to shake their behinds while he watches. This is absolutely the sexualization of our kids. This is sexual immorality. And I'm sorry, unless the guy repents, he's not going to enter the kingdom of heaven. But there's going to be some argument, how do you say this is sexual immorality? Well, how about this? The last line of that, all liars. Him saying that joy comes from throwing off the oppressive laws, and I got to assume these are the laws of God because there's no law in man that says man can't dress this way. Therefore, he's lying to these kids, saying you need to throw these off and you're still going to enter eternity. See, I think there is scripture about this guy, but I don't believe it is in where he's talking about the fact that he's going to enter into life. I think you're going to find this. Romans chapter 1, verses 28 to 31. It says, and even as they did not like to retain in God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a debased mind, to do those things which are not fitting, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy, unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful. It says, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice these things are deserving of death. Now here's the kicker. He should know it. He says, not only do the same, but approve of those who practice them. This is talking about why the wrath of God is going to come. This guy, he's been handed over to a debased mind. He is teaching it to children. He is doing it in the name of God in a place where God is supposed to be worshipped, while telling them, hey, throw off God's laws. You'll experience joy. Do whatever you feel like, and you're good to go. That's the foundation there. Do what makes you happy. But that foundation is a bad foundation. It's a hedonistic foundation. And it says, God, you created me, but hey, I'm throwing off your laws. And I'm going to do whatever I want to do. This is not the way to live. This is the exploitation of kids. And this is the grooming of kids in a way that should never be. And I think unless this man repents, he's in trouble. Now, I'm going to take a commercial break here. We got to take a little break. It's a little bit of a heavy stuff there. So we're going to go with a commercial break. And then we'll come back with a second news article.
Oh, hi there. Malachi here of the Federation of Snake Oil Salesmen. Are you tired of government-mandated restrictions, quarantining, and limited gatherings? Well, fear no more. We at the Snake Oil Salesman Federation have come up with a cure for leprosy. Leprosy me, now you don't. You see, not long ago I was like you, a social pariah, outcast, to live alone because of my leprosy. Not only did I suffer from my leprosy, I suffered from anxiety that stemmed from my leprosy. I always worried that perhaps a tooth might crack or my fingers might fall off. Leprosy, now you don't cream. Get back to living. Don't worry about the spreading.
Leprosy, now you don't cream. The perfect gift for the invalid in your family.
Leprosy cannot be found in stores, online, or any other marketplaces. It is not a real product. Please do not come looking for it. All right, welcome back after that commercial. I gotta admit, that commercial's not real. It was actually just one that was done for our Christmas presentation here just last month. That's all it was. I just figured we needed some humor after such a heavy story with that story of the drag prayer time. But it's all time to get right into our next news story. Oh yeah, the next story coming up. This one comes out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we're going to go, and I'm going to pull up the story for you here. All right, here we are. Staffers quit venue church after confronting pastor with allegations of affair misconduct. Now, that's not truthfully that big of a news story. Now, it's something that shouldn't be, but the reason I say it's not that is because truthfully, over the last couple of years, there's been quite a few what I would call mega church pastors who have been dismissed due to misconduct, be it sexual misconduct, be it affairs, be it money management, be it that kind of thing. But there is something in this story that I do want to look at. I want us to go through the story just a little bit. Bear with me. We're going to read through some of this story here. So let's pull it back up here, and let's go. It says, at least 8 employees of Venue Church, a fast-growing congregation based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, have reportedly quit their jobs over alleged misconduct by Pastor Tavner Smith, who is allegedly shown kissing a woman who is not his wife in a video that recently surfaced online. Now, I can tell you, I always love it when news articles say the word allegedly, because it's trying to say, hey, maybe it's not really him. No. He's kissing a woman, and she's not his wife. I've seen the video. This isn't something that I'm just saying, hey, I'm taking the word for it. No, I watched the video. They were released. But it continues on. Last Friday afternoon, staff and volunteers confronted Smith about the video recorded in North Georgia. The Chattanooga Times Free Press reported. 2 employees and 4 volunteers or members previously connected to the church told the newspaper that the 8 employees quit after confronting the pastor about a rumored affair with a church employee. Venue did not immediately respond when contacted by the Christian Post on Thursday morning, but a spokesperson for the church told the Times Free Press that no comment will be made until after the severance process for staff was finalized. That's probably wise, because you got to understand this, that most of these mega churches have non-disclosure clauses and non-competing clauses. So it'd be things like you are not allowed to discuss anything that you saw or witnessed behind the scenes, and you're also not allowed to serve in any ministry capacity anywhere around us, usually about 40 miles. That's kind of an issue there too. But let's continue. Court records showed that the pastor and his wife, Danielle Smith, who have 3 kids, began divorce proceedings in May, according to the Times Free Press. But before the report, several individuals who said they are former members or employees of the church publicly made significant allegations of pastoral abuse and misconduct against Smith and his leadership team, including what they suggest is a pattern of marital infidelity. Former Venue Church employee Colt Chandler Helton wrote in a Facebook post Sunday that he has worked for over 12 churches throughout his career, from North Point to Hillsong, and was hired by Venue Church in its early days to set up its systems and structures and model anything an adult would experience on Sunday morning. In hindsight, I taught the I taught the Iranians how to make nuclear weapons, Helton, who worked for the church for nearly a year, in 2014, contends. I gave a man who had very bad intentions the ability to make a megachurch. He shared a lengthy list of reasons why he left Venue Church, including what he claims to be financial abuse and witnessing domestic abuse in an atmosphere where there are zero elders or accountability. I don't so much want to talk about the guy, the senior pastor, lead pastor, and his infidelities. I don't want to talk about the abuse. And I did look into all of it. I did read all the reports, the videos, and everything. What I'm fascinated by is this statement by Colt Chandler Helton. That's who I'm curious about. Now, he mentions that he worked for numerous churches. One is North Point. I believe that would be Andy Stanley's church, son of Charles Stanley. I believe that's who that is. And Hillsong, I'm guessing this is one of the Hillsong in the United States'. Hillsong's mega church is out of Australia with Brian Houston, and they have satellite churches around the globe. I believe there's one in England. There's one in New York, which ran into some problems here not too long ago with their lead pastor getting in trouble. I think it was actually 2 Hillsong churches where pastors have gotten in trouble. And you wonder, what is the common factor behind all this? And so again, the question is, what is the foundation of this? What's causing the foundation? What's the problem here? What's behind it all? That's the question to ask. And I think it's found in the paragraph that he said, where he has worked at over 12 churches throughout his career, North Point to Hillsong, and was hired by Venue Church in its early days to set up its systems and structures and model anything an adult would experience on a Sunday morning. And then he says, in hindsight, I taught the Iranians how to make nuclear weapons. I gave a man who had very, very bad intentions the ability to make a mega church. It's that last line which got me thinking, took my attention. And it's simply this. It is the foundation or the understanding, and I think this is the problem that many have, and it's one that's easy to fall into, that the church is a business. That the church is a system that you can control. That the church is designed to do one thing, and that is to sell a product, that product being Jesus, and get people to pay for it. To get people to come. That the church is a business that can be set up. Obviously, he's got a system. Because from outside perspective, North Point, Hillsong, and even Venue Church would have been considered very prosperous. And there's probably other churches. I wouldn't be surprised if the list was on there. If I saw the full list that we worked with, I probably wouldn't be surprised of the other churches. But it's this idea that it's a business. It's set up. Unfortunately, this didn't begin with him. This began also with Rick Warren. Rick Warren, Saddleback Church, Purpose-Driven Church, the whole bit, Purpose-Driven Church movement. The whole idea behind it, if you look at it, was not that the church is something that Christ builds, but this idea that the church is a business that should follow the business model of the world. And even from Purpose-Driven Church in Saddleback, there, I've read the book because when it came out, I wanted to know what it was all about. Read it, but the first couple chapters are not too bad. But after that, it's all about, hey, we're going to set up a business. You develop a vision statement for your business, your church. That was only a half slip of the tongue there. You set up a vision statement, then you push that forward all the time, and then you remove opposition. You remove those things which cause problems, such things as hymnals, crosses, Bibles, pulpits. You make it look like a concert auditorium, and you build it more like a concert. And your idea is you build people to come, you get them in to come, and therefore you celebrate in that aspect. And then you build this church. Notice what it said. To set up its systems, its structures, and model anything an adult would experience on a Sunday morning. In other words, it was designed to be pleasing. It was designed to get people in. So every message, every moment, everything you move from the time you get from in the door to the time you sit and the time you leave, it is designed in a system to do nothing but manipulate. So it's this idea that church must manipulate people, and a church is only successful if it has an audience full of people. That's the underlying problem. That really is. That is the problem. They say church, so that's it. So it's defined by the money in the plate. That's what it is. See, there's the issue. It becomes a man-made system. Is it any wonder that under a man-made system, that the leaders are man-made? Or as he said, had very, very bad intentions? Is it any wonder that under these systems, that men can rise up and abuse the system and take advantage of it and have extramarital affairs to take advantage of the money? And this was also be done here at Venue Church. If you were to go through that article, it talks about the fact that they would always complain that there's not enough money, but the pastor, the lead pastor there, would have new cars every couple of months, expensive shopping trips, and all that, and no wonder he can have affairs with his worship leader. Because you've set up a man-made system, not a church of Christ. The church was never designed to sell Jesus. The church was designed to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what it was designed to do. It was designed to proclaim it. It wasn't designed to have big bank accounts. It wasn't designed to line the pockets of the leaders. It wasn't designed to do any of that. It was designed so that the pastor, that the leader, the team could bring the people and instruct them and to make disciples. That's what it was about. Unfortunately, the church wasn't even designed to make us feel good. It's not about making us feel great. It's not about making us feel comfortable. It's about helping us to become made in the image of Christ. Because if we're only going to a church that's making us feel good, it's no wonder that when we step out of that and into a world of hardships and a world of difficulties, that we're falling apart. Because that's what's taking place. You see, the foundation of that church was it's a man-made system. And that can be extended into people as well, that this is a man-made religion. Then religion is man-serving. Well, truthfully, that's what religion is. Religion is all about rules and regulations, but Christianity, the true biblical worldview, is all about Jesus. Religion will bring you under oppression. A relationship with Jesus will set you free. That's what we have to understand. So the foundation there is a bad one. The foundation, and this is what you see, the cracks of that foundation. It may take a little while when the foundation is first put up. But a church like Venue Church clearly shows what happens when your foundation is the works of a man. The foundation is what happens when you are the one who is under it. And there are other churches that have fallen under the exact same thing. I think of Mark Driscoll a couple of years ago, Mars Hill Church. It was all built around Mark Driscoll, not around Christ. And when he had a falling, a moral failing, the system fell apart. Another one, Perry Noble, same thing. Fell apart. RZIM, Ravi Zacharias International Ministry, same thing. When it becomes a man-made system built around a man rather than the gospel and truth of Jesus Christ, you're on a bad foundation, and it will fall. That is what's going to happen. That's what takes place here, and that's what you see. And so that is what is happening here. That's the foundation. So you ask yourself the question. If you attend church, you just look at the church and just ask the question, who is it about? Who's the church about? Is it about the pastor? Is it about his image? Is it about their systems? Is it about their groups? Then you've got a church that is built probably on a bad foundation. Now, I am not saying that every mega church is wrong. I'm not saying that every mega church is evil. I'm not saying that every mega church is false. I'm just saying if the foundation of a church is not built on Jesus Christ and rather is built on man-made systems, then you've got a bad foundation. And in time, just like the house built on the sand, the wind blows, the rain comes in, the water rises, those hardships come, those times come, eventually those cracks will form. Eventually they will become visible, and then it'll start to fall. There's yet to be a ministry, there's yet to be a parachurch organization or a church or church leaders that have fallen, that have first thing happened is that the cracks didn't form first. They were always there. be it in the teaching, be it in the doctrines, be it in that kind of thing. It's always there, and eventually it will fall. Every single one of them has. You can look at the Crystal Cathedral to see that as well in older church, which is all seeker sensitive. That's enough for our news stories in this episode. But I want to get into something else. We're going a little bit long here. We're 40 minutes in, but I want to jump into our segment here. I got to get our theme music going here for our next segment here. There it goes. Oh yeah, this segment here, we're coming into the what? Why are you so mean? Why are you so mean? We want to look at a meme here. And if you're not familiar with what a meme is, let me cut back the theme music just a little bit. A meme is kind of like one of those internet things you see where they usually have a picture set up and it's words at top and they say something. I'm gonna show you a meme, and the one we're gonna deal with here is I just kind of roll back the music all the way. And the meme that I want to deal with is kind of this one. I've seen it on social media. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen it on various things. And it says this. It says, teach your daughter economic independence so in the future she can have a partner, not a master. Teach your son to do housework so in the future he can have a partner, not a servant. Now you may be going, yeah, amen, amen, yeah, amen. True, yes. Look how great this. And I've seen this shared. I really have. And first, let me start with the teaching here. A little bit of it. I agree. Teach your daughter economic independence. Teach her how to balance the books. Teach her how to pay bills. Teach her how to earn money. Teach her how to save money. That's great. And I agree. Teach your son how to do housework, how to do cooking, how to do cleaning, how to do ironing, how to do sewing. Let me tell you, I taught some youth here. 2 years ago, I did just life skills was kind of the session I taught at the youth group. How to do basic things like basic car maintenance, how to change a windshield wiper, how to change a tire, how to check your oil, how to put fluids in your car. And then we taught things like cooking, how to cook, how to bake, how to do various little things. Then we taught things like how to sew. And then we taught an etiquette class. Manners, how to hold a door for people, how to do these things. These are things that we need to learn. Look, I'm all for this. This is what you're supposed to do. We are supposed to teach our children how to do these things. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to teach them how to be kind of independent, how to look after themselves. I agree. But again, there's an underlying theme here that I want you to pay attention to. One that kind of gets bypassed. Why? Because we're living in this culture of what I'm going to call the feminist worldview. Now, I'm not against feminism. I'm not. I'm not against the first initial forms of feminism. Why? Because men and women were both created in the image of God. I want you to understand that. This is in the biblical worldview. In the evolutionary worldview, you can't even really explain why there are sexes. Why is there male and female? You can say why there's a benefit to male and female. You can say you can look at it now and say what are the benefits of male and female and the genetic passing on and things like that. But you can't actually explain why there's male and female. And in that, the real question comes in, if we're looking at it from an evolutionary point of view, which came first, male or female? Because if we're going to evolution, it's got to be an androgynous system where they could just suddenly, where they could reproduce, they could take something in and reproduce. But why did it suddenly become male and female? Why two of them at once? Which one came first? Because if males suddenly came first and they can't reproduce on their own, then they would have died off. If females suddenly just developed and evolved and they came out, then they wouldn't be able to reproduce and died off. So it doesn't make any sense. But so the biblical worldview creation that they were created is the best picture, and they were created in the image of God. They were created with equal value and in the image of God. So I'm all for it. The first wave feminism. which was all about women's right to exist, women's right to live, to be created equal. Coming into women's right to vote, I am all for that. Women should have a say. Women view the world differently than men do. That's just the way we're wired. That's the way we were created. That's great. And that is true. But this modern feminism is no longer, as much as they say, they do a bait and switch here, it's not about equality anymore. It's about domination. It really is. It's about men are the oppressor and women are the oppressee. So women have to break through. And you see that even in this meme here. Like, again, I am all for teach our children independence, financial independence. I am all for teaching our children how to cook, how to clean, how to do domestic stuff. That is great. No problem there. But the language of this meme is not that of an equal relationship. It has a poor view of marriage. Let me pull that up again. Look, teach your daughter economic independence so in the future she can have a partner, look at the language, not a master. Go over to the son. Teach your son to do housework in the future so he can have a partner, not a servant. See a problem there? The underlying assumption is that the conventional marriage is that of the husband thinks he's master and the wife is in the role of a servant or a slave. Somebody's messed up. Because if that's your understanding of marriage, you either have had a very poor example of marriage or you've got a bad understanding of marriage. Because that's never the way it is. I can tell you, in our household, I cook, I clean, I take care of the kids. My wife cooks, she cleans, she takes care of the kids. I fold laundry. I screw up the laundry by mixing my kids' laundry in with my own. Look, my kid's coming into a teenager and he's as big as I am. So I'll mess it up. I make the bed poorly. I'll admit, my wife goes right behind me. He's like, you didn't make it right, which is fine. I learned to make it her way, not because of some duty, but because I have a love for her. But you see, that's the underlying assumption there, is that man sees himself as the master of the wife. Boy, is that wrong. Boy, is that a bad way. And if you're teaching this to kids and you're teaching this to the younger generation, it's no wonder they've got a poor view of marriage. There's no wonder that, don't take this the wrong way, but women are developing an inferiority complex or an oppressive complex. They're being told that every man wants to do nothing but make them servants, make them slaves in their household. That's all they want to do. That's not it at all. That's a bad definition of marriage. But you see, the world's definition of marriage, and there's where your problem is. The world is defining marriage in a way that it becomes nothing more than a contract. That it's an agreement between two people who come into it and say, hey, here's what I'm bringing into the marriage, here's what you're bringing into the marriage, so let's figure it out. And then when one person doesn't meet their end of their contractual obligations, as it were, then they just leave. Because unfortunately, one of the things they put in their contract of marriage is that my partner is supposed to make me happy all the time. That's what it is. You see, we've got a bad definition of marriage. And this idea that marriage is a social construct. And they're saying, well, the traditional view is so bad that the man just thinks he's the master, that the wife is supposed to do everything he says, have no voice of her own, that everything just goes his way and you don't do things. Wow, that's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. I'm sorry. That's not the way it is to be. If you want to understand what marriage is, you've got to go and you have to look at the Bible. I told you I wasn't going to hide the fact that my foundation is a biblical worldview here. You see, it's not the world's worldview which says, hey, I can do whatever my wife. But then you may look at things and say, I know things about the Bible. I know what it says. The Bible says, wives, submit to your husbands. Say, see, You're perpetuating this idea that you're the master and she's the slave. Not at all. Not at all. If you're jumping things. Ephesians chapter 5 says, first thing, submit to one another as to the Lord. And then it starts to talk about marriage. It talks about the relationship to the husband and the wife. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 tells us exactly things about, hey, husband, your body doesn't belong to yourself. It belongs also to your wife. And wives, the same thing. Your body's not your own. It also belongs to your husband. Why? Because the two become one. And when it comes to the roles, now I'm not talking about the household duties here. You can divvy those up however you want. Look, my wife, I'll admit, my wife does most of the cooking. I do cook. I can cook. But she really enjoys cooking. She does. And I do baking. One of the things she wants me to do, which I've got to do here, is bake some bread. She's horrible at it. She'll tell you that. So I bake the bread. Doesn't bother me. I don't mind doing it. Truthfully, I'm not a huge fan of doing rolls just because of the extra effort, but I don't mind doing bread. You can divvy up the duties however you want. Look, I'm employed. My wife's employed. A lot of times, I take the kids to appointments. I take them to doctor's appointments. I take them to dentist appointments. Doesn't bother me at all. Shopping is both. See, there's the problem. We equate almost the duties in the household with roles. But that's not the way it is. The Bible doesn't say it that way. You go read Proverbs 31 when it's talking about the virtuous wife. She's a housemaker and she's a businesswoman. She sells her wares in the marketplace. Nothing wrong with that. But it's the definition that the understanding there that, hey, women, you need to have a partner, not a master, is saying that men are the masters. No. When you look at the biblical definition of marriage, it's husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. How did he love the church? He willingly laid down his life for the church. And church, we are sinful, we are selfish, we are greedy, we are defiled. And Christ said, I willingly give up for you. You see, the role of the husband, even if he's the head of the household, is to give up everything for his wife. See, that's everything. It says, I will lay down my life for my wife. This is a tall order. There's no room here for masters and slaves. It's him saying, I will love you no matter what. You go back and you look at the marriage vows, the actual marriage vows, not these ones that people write for themselves, but the traditional marriage vows. And you will notice that there is nothing in there at all that really speaks about the other person. In the husband's vows, which I took, they were all about, I promise that I will love you and honor you in sickness and health, for richer, for poorer, no matter what may come, wherever the Lord's may leads, until death do us part. None of that has to do with my wife. This is the scandal that the husband enters into, which means if my wife goes off the deep end, if my wife, in essence, sins against me, I say I will still love her. Because that's the other problem here, is this definition of love that we have, that love is a feeling. No, love's a choice. I choose to love my wife in the forsaking of all others. I will not love another the way I love my wife. That's the husband's job. What part of that is master? What part of that says my wife is my servant or my slave? None of it is. But see, when we pass memes like this, we're reinforcing the idea at the foundation of it that, hey, traditional marriage is bad. Men in traditional marriage think that they're masters. Women, girls, you're nothing but slaves in the traditional marriage. So you got to throw out that traditional marriage. No, what we have to do is rediscover it the way that God wanted it to be. That's what we need to be. Because a marriage that is built on a bad foundation, which unfortunately many are, is one that will crumble. It may last 5-7 years, It may last 14. I think the average marriage in Canada is about 13 years. I think that's what it is. And then it breaks apart because it's built on a bad foundation. A marriage that is built on the foundation of Jesus. This is what we need. That's where we got to be. Now, I'm going to stop there. That's our segment. Why are you so meme? But I thank you for joining me here for our time here for Foundation and being together. And I just want to ask you that question again as we're coming to a close here. What are you building your life on? What are you building your foundation on? Are you building it on the foundations of this world? Are you building it on a faulty foundation? Or are you building it on a solid foundation? And I would encourage you, as the host and as your servant, to do your best to build your life on the solid foundation of Jesus Christ. Because that's where it's fine. Until next time, build and be solid on Jesus.